Thursday? Is Eid on Wednesday? Is the norm? Of course, today is Thursday, and you can still be celebrating because it is 3 days, right? While the moon's been discovered and so many inventions, there's a car that can fly now, right? And we're still asking, wondering, debating, arguing whether it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, or it's Thursday. Of course, I'm good for all 3 days. So brothers and sisters, don't get too emotional, don't get too angry. Enjoy Eid over the 3 days and you'll be okay. You know, it's a day of happiness, it's a day of celebration, day of remembrance, and so many good things from Eid. So ring me up and let me know how you got on with your Eid. My producer will put the number up here, which I want to let you know shortly, and then you can text us also and tell us how you enjoyed your Eid. Of course, on the 19th, Uncle Boris said that we are free. We are free. We can do everything, almost everything, and it's been a little bit different because I went to the town centre today, city centre, the High Cross, and it was pretty dead. It was pretty dead. And today we have a wonderful guest joining us from the north of England. He'll tell us all about himself, and he's very much involved with diversity, with racism, and a lot of community cohesion in his particular area, which is Leeds, in that region, Leeds, Wakefield, Dewsbury, all of that. We call that the M62 belt. So, Brother Hussein, welcome to Haj Radio. It's an honor to have you here, and Brother has drove here especially to come and join us and share with us some good ideas.
Good evening, Zed. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. First time I come to your studio. Before we did it during Ramadan, whilst I was in Dubai. So we did it a couple of times. So this is quite a different setup. It's the real thing.
Yeah. So how are you finding this hot weather and the 19th Freedom Day?
Actually, it feels warmer here than it does in Dubai, because in Dubai you've got all the facilities and all the air conditioning. Here it just feels very hot.
Of course, you were hot desking in Dubai, weren't you? Remote working for almost a year. How was that?
No, it was not a year. It was about 5.5 months, yes.
And how was that, compared to what you're doing here in the...
Now I've come back to UK. I'm back in the office. And I think I've just been able to do work remotely just as good as being in the office, to be honest. Probably did more remotely than I'm doing it currently, but maybe it's just because of the hot weather. A little bit lethargic with the hot weather. Of
course. Now, if anybody wants to call in right now, I've got a text message already said, what is the number to call in? It's 0116 4822 and the WhatsApp or the Snapchat or the SMS is 077 488 55055. And I'm sure, Brother Hussein, maybe some of your fans out there will call you and speak to you and share with you some of their ideas. So it's good to have you back in England. It has been quite an experience from March 2019. Almost a year has passed by. Of course, all of you listening in right now, you will know that it was 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, when last time we had a pandemic in 1918 called the Spanish flu.
Yes.
You remember that, Brother Hussein?
I vaguely remember it, yes. I'm not that old, but...
It's a long time ago.
But
almost historically, every 100 years, we have a huge
But I think this one is a bit unprecedented, to be honest, Zed. It's obviously we'd had no media at that time in 1918, no such powerful media, no social media. Now it's much more amplified. It feels like a unique event in history. I think it is a unique event in history. I'm still trying to understand it.
Of course, you and everybody else are trying to understand this issue of COVID. Now, we have of recent, along with COVID, had many other issues that are happening in the community. And here on the radio, Haj Radio, we say that everybody who comes on, sits with us in the studio, they need to leave here or they need to call us back and tell us 3 wonderful ideas that we can implement in our community. Yeah. Last year, we had a fantastic fundraiser for the Children's Hospital in Leicester, the Royal Infirmary, a new ward specially built for children.
I remember that.
Yeah, with equipment to rival Great Ormond Street. And all of you, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, that we did from radio, took a team there to the hospital and saw some of that equipment, and you walked into the room and it was like a set from Star Trek.
Excellent work. Well done, Ted.
Absolute, unbelievable, the equipment in there, right? And this is what it's all about. It's absolute forward thinking. Some equipment there is like £300,000 and some basic equipment is £30,000. So a lot of money, £25 million project. And I think anybody who wants to come and have a look is welcome to do so. It's your hospital, and you, the community, made a lot of effort, raised a lot of money.
It's a good example of community cohesion.
Of course it is. And the bulk of the money was from all the charities that work with Radio Ramadan. And big hats off to them. They absolutely worked very hard to put together £250,000. But £25,000 was just purely from the community. And these donations are for £10, £20, £5. It does not matter. And anybody,
Absolutely.
This project is not complete yet. We are continuing with this, Brother Hussein, with doing some football matches, charity football matches, charity cricket matches, charity walks, so that we can continue to raise money for this institution, which is our hospital, the Children's Hospital at LRI, Leicester Royal Infirmary. So please, don't forget us, don't forget LRI, don't forget the children, and let's carry on this fundraise. Now, if anybody wants to donate, they can send us a text on 077 488 55055. Of course, Brother Hussein, should we be waiting till our own children are there before we wake up that we must support our institutions?
Of course not. I mean, we can do our part, even as much as we can. You're doing a great job here, Zed. I mean, I've seen some of the project work that you're doing here. It's, the Empower 50 is great. I'm surprised nobody's nominated you for the OBE. I think your name should be put forward.
Brother Hussein, we don't do this for accolades. We do these projects for our community, our next generation.
Of course.
Right?
But I think you need to also be recognized for it.
Yeah,
You've done a lot of work.
recognition comes from the parents, and that's good enough, and that is fantastic. When Brother Hussein, when a parent will call you and they're almost praying for you, and they give you such wonderful words of wisdom, and they make dua for you, what better accolade can you get than that, Brother Hussein? Can you beat that? Right?
Of course not.
You can't beat that.
The reward of the akhirahs are always best.
Yeah.
But
And
I think I'll still write to Mr. Johnson and commend you for it. Next year.
He might not be in a job by then. He's looking to retire and he wants to get back to the private sector, right?
And make a lot more money, yes.
And of course, you see how everybody in the community waits for the local council or their local MP or the government to make things happen. Yet, repeatedly we say that we, the community, we are the boss. The community, if they come together, hold hands together, discuss their requirements, they will make it happen.
Of course, small efforts. It starts small, but then it slowly builds up. I remember listening to Noam Chomsky. He makes a joke about this. He says, when I first started giving lectures and talks, I'd usually get invited to a church, and there's the vicar, there's the caretaker, and there's usually a drunk person who comes off the street to listen to me, and there's only 4 of us. But then it grows, and look at how many people listen to Noam Chomsky now, all around the world.
Of course, he's been at it for a long time, hasn't he?
Very much so.
Yeah, and supporting a lot of good causes all over the world.
Yes.
And for those of you who will not know, some of you are younger, and Noam Chomsky is one of the top lecturers on philosophy and life and so many educational matters. He's one of the top educators in the USA right now, and he's a chancellor. He's in his 90s.
Yes.
And he still gives a good talk.
Very much so. He's doing more podcasts now, interviews.
Yeah.
And I enjoy listening to him from time to time.
Of course, talking about podcasts, that is the future, isn't it? So I have myself listened to a lot of podcasts on the YouTube, and I've learned a lot from many, many good speakers, Jordan Peterson and Russell Peters, Russell Brand,
yes.
And
yes.
Not Russell Peters, Russell Brand.
Yes.
And there are many, there are thousands.
Yes. I don't know. Jordan Peterson, you mentioned, he's one of my favorites at the moment. So I'm listening to a number of his podcasts. I kind of like subscribe.
Well, of course, I say every day to everybody, it's the KIP. Everybody's got to listen in and do some KIP, which is knowledge is power, Brother Hussein, right? You have the knowledge, you have the power, you have the data. You add that data to the KIP, and what happens, Brother Hussein?
You become empowered.
No.
Okay.
You have the PMS.
PMS.
Yeah, you have the power, you have the money, and you have the success, right? So
Excellent.
whatever we do, brothers, we read the Quran for what? Iqra.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Why we have to do Iqra all the time? Read.
Read, yes.
So what do we read first? We read the Quran?
First, that was the first message, yes,
Yes.
for us Muslims.
After the Quran, we must never stop reading. Now, I personally like to read a book. I struggle to read off my phone or my laptop. I'm maybe used to reading a book, but nowadays, people will probably have a book on a PDF and they'll read it like that.
On Kindle, yes. I enjoy reading books, but now I find it's a lot easier to listen to YouTube. I find the interaction with YouTube just as powerful and interesting as a book.
That's right. Now, we're going to move on to a very interesting topic now. We have the second session of our program, and this topic is very, very hot in the news. We've recently, only 3 days ago, we had a 32-year-old gentleman from the ethnic community. He was knifed to death. So knife crime is a big problem in every city in England.
Wow.
And when you see the stats, these stats are proportional to the population in each city. So you start with London, you start with Birmingham, you look at Manchester, you look at all the cities in England, Leeds, Liverpool, and then Leicester would come in at maybe 9th or 10th biggest city in England with a population of about 400,000, right? So you have Birmingham, London, and knife crime is a crime that seems to be accelerating. Right,
That's
so
a shame.
it's the shape.
Sad.
It's a shape and culture and behavior of the community which is totally unacceptable, Brother Hussein.
It is, yes. I think it goes back to parenting, education, the environment. There's a lot of issues that one can talk about here that affect, even the mental health of people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this happened or what was the motives behind the crime, but
Of course, all the time when it happens, somebody's lost a brother or a sister or a father or a mother, and it is a problem, isn't it, in the whole community. So these kind of crimes, when they happen in the community, in the city of Leicester, the whole community is affected in some shape, form or manner.
yes.
And this is the same that happens in all of the cities we have. Is it an inner city problem or is it a outer city problem?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not sure about the statistics, but I would suspect that it would happen maybe more in the inner cities. Yeah. But
So do you think that social media has amplified this problem over the years?
in what sense?
Well, social media can assist and it can also amplify the problem by creating the wrong type of awareness, and people get involved in groups and then they fight with other groups and they create a lot of animosity like that, and it just builds up until you come to a stage where youths are becoming disenchanted. Mm-hmm. So what is your view on this, brothers?
I think social media is like a two-edged sword. I mean, it can bring communities together. It can bring a certain kind of agenda, if you like. It makes it powerful. I mean, the recent things that we've had, for example, over the football and the Euro Cup is a prime example. You know, there was a small element, perhaps, that voiced a certain type of racist views against some England players, and there was a backlash from the rest of the community and population to fight against it. So it's a double-edged sword. It can be used both ways, but it's a very powerful tool.
Of course, now I got to move on to the diversity aspect of the program that we have come here to discuss today. That in each city that we have, how many diversities do you think that we have in each city?
I think we were talking about this earlier, and you said somewhere like about 40 different cultural diversities in a place like Leicester?
Well, not only Leicester, but in London it's even more.
Wow, yes.
But average is 40.
Uh-huh.
Right? And this is incredible, isn't it?
It is, and it can actually be very very good for the whole community.
Of course, this figure is based upon countries that people come from. So if somebody is from Poland, for example, he's Polish and he's in Leicester now, so he's from that particular community. So what we find throughout the UK, that each community, there's a saying which says, birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah,
yes?
This is natural. People like to be connected with their community members. They share culture, they share religion, they share interest, and I mean that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that I think the negativity comes when you're closed onto yourself and you're not prepared to be open onto others. You can still be close to your own community, but still open to others. You get to know.
Of course, that there's pros and cons here, Brother Hussein. You can be together, but you are insulated, and you then do not interact with the wider community, and then the divisions increase between us as a community throughout the country. So this country now, let's say actively, the ethnic community has been here for 70 years or 50 years. For example, when did you come to this country?
Oh, it was
Which
in the
year?
70s. It was 77.
77 you
yes.
came here.
Yeah,
So
it's
like we would have come
40
here,
years plus.
myself and my family would have come here in 1972, but active immigration into this city has been coming since the 50s, 60s, and each decade we've had a different people from different parts of the world who have come here. So if I take the city here in Leicester, so you will see that in the 70s we had the advent of the Ugandan Asians, who were predominantly from the Indian community. Some 10% was Sikh and 10% may have been from the Muslim community. And then the 80s we had people come from Malawi, and there was a huge influx from the colonial Britain that started to come here to England. And of course these diversities, have they been understood fully by our host community here?
To some extent, I think there's a lot of work happening now. I remember like when I used to be a school governor in Leeds, in one of the schools, after the Stephen Lawrence murder, there was a push for education and racial diversity and awareness in schools. So I was put in charge of this diversity when I was a governor for about 3 or 4 years in one of the schools. And we did some interesting projects, like bringing in different community members and bringing them to school, talking, doing like different types of activities, like we did a Cuban dance. We brought in a chef from one of the popular restaurants in the area to show the students how to make Asian cooking. So it was like simple things, interesting ideas, just to help with the diversity and the cohesion of the community. And the school loved it. I had a very supporting head teacher at the time.
Of course, there's so much information available on the internet, yet are we fully using it effectively? As I told you, social media can amplify a racist view, or it can even benefit people from paying attention and learning and doing the knowledge is power, Brother Hussein.
Yes, it's very powerful. Are we using it effectively? I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, some people use it effectively, and all this needs an effort. Yeah, I mean, you can do your part as an individual, but when people come together and they have a concerted effort to push against a certain sort of like negative view on race, for example, it is much more powerful. Yeah. Unfortunately, social media can also be used politically, and it does require resources.
So now many people will reflect upon all the people that we have in this country, for example, and often you talk to people and they will refer to it as shame and pride in Britain's history of past, right? So we're all the product of yesterday. So events that have taken place over 100 years ago, some of those events are the reasons why we are here in the UK today.
Yes,
yes?
Indeed.
And
that's
then
happened throughout human history. It's nothing new.
So migration of people, the world was created by that, by the migration of people from one country to another. Yes?
Exactly. The European people, the historians say, that they came originally from northern India. Yeah. That's why they call the European languages Indo-European language, because they found a lot of similarity with the Sanskrit language. And the migrations, I don't know when they started, maybe 10,000 years ago or more, but they would come from northern India, and that one tribe would leave and settle in Eastern Europe, and the Ukraine was the place where they had settled for some reason. It was the right environment. And then the second wave of migration happens, and they fight the first one who settled in Ukraine, and they win them over, and they push them to the west, and they settle in their place. And then the third wave comes until those migrations ended up in the UK, in Ireland, in France. That's the origin of European nations. So we think that we are unique in our culture, in our race, in our skin. But actually, when you go deep in history, you see the connections between people. And as I said before, there's nothing wrong with liking your own community. It's not racist to like your own community. But if you prefer somebody, a bad character in your own community to a good character in another community, that is racism. Yeah, that can be racist.
But the issue we have throughout the country is in the inner cities, we have our structure of councillors, for example. Yes? Mm-hmm. And then we have a structure of MPs, Member of Parliaments, and then we have the split of the boundary lines. In Leicester, we have Leicester East, Leicester South, Leicester North West, Leicester West, and the whole country is, the whole city is divided according to the boundary lines. Then you have your voting eligible community, and then they themselves are split into their diverse community.
Yes.
And then you have the issue of selection or election issues. Mm-hmm. Now, this is prevalent throughout every city in the country.
I think people should be elected rather than selected, but they should be elected based on how valuable they're going to be to the community, their input to the community.
Of course, when they are selected it's very important to understand the difference between selection and election. Is that when one community will vote for one person purely because he's from their particular community, regardless of the capability of that person, then this is where the imbalance happens. And I'd like to see more people coming out to vote. Now, our turnout at the moment is between 40% to 49%. Now, what would happen if our dynamic changed and eligible voters would increase to 60 or 70%?
That will have an impact.
Huge impact, won't it?
Huge impact, yes.
Yeah.
But, I was listening to Noam Chomsky, actually, and he was talking about the US elections. And it turns out that in 95% of occasions, those who pay more money to the politicians that are going to be elected will win votes. So campaign money is very important. So in 95% of cases, those who pay more money for the campaigns will have their candidate elected. And usually, in the States, you've got the business community. They pay 12 times as much towards their candidates than the other institutions, the labor movements, for example.
Of course,
so that's
where we're going now here, right, is the community. They find politics to be boring. Many people in the community. When I ask them, why don't you get involved? Why are you not a member of your local ward council? And they're not interested. Young people especially. So it's very, very important for creating a structure where they will engage. If they don't engage, we cannot effect a better environment. We will continue with the same old.
I think we don't need to interest everybody, but we need just to create the interest so that enough interest so that a percentage of people would move in a certain direction. And this is